أنشدت بسم الله ثم الحمد له فالله أهل الحمد إن الحمد له يا رب أنت كلما رزقتني رأيت خيرا سابغا لا حد له بك الرجاء.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لن ترى للمتحابين مثل النكاح كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. We'd like to formally and officially welcome everyone. To our second seminar. Inshallah, we will be discussing the art of choosing a spouse. And this, that will be my part. Moulana Subair's part will be very crucial aspects, and I think it's part of every individual's life that he will face, inshallah. Our presentation, obviously, it is aimed at how do we actually navigate as Muslims. What is the status of nikah and marriage, and what is the sacred bond all about through the eyes of Islam? And when we go through the Quran ayahs and the Hadith, it is so that we can come on par with the dictates of Allah and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived his life in marriage, so that we can align our marriages with that of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we go through Quran and Sunnah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is obviously his par excellence. So if we fall short, or if we are online with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we keep it that way. And if we are fall short, then inshallah we have work to do. So the hadith I quoted before you, and I'm just going to wrap through it. The hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam: you will not find a better union, a better couple, or a better union than that of nikah. So nikah is a special bond between two people. You're not going to find a better bond and a union for two people living together. Already from this hadith, there's something special about it. We've heard the statements before that nikah is half of deen. Right? So, let me ask you another question. What is the average age of a couple getting married in today's time? Generally speaking, in today's time? Late 20s. Okay, let's push it a bit. So late 20s, say 25 upwards. Okay? Previously, it was how old? 19, 20. Okay. So let's age, let's make it 30. Let's round it up by 30. So if a person gets married at the age of 30 and he dies at what? 60, 70, maybe 80 years? What's the average? If he gets married at the age of 30 and he dies at 70, that's how many years of marriage? 40. If he does how many years of marriage? 40. If he was married at 20 and he dies at 60, at 70? 40, 50 years. So, when we look at it, and if marriage is half of your deen, how much of you would spend majority and most of your life in the sacred bond of deen? At least you would have half. So that is why nikah is a very special union. And that is why it is encouraged for us and for the youngsters to get married at a very young age. And there's so much benefits as besides all that. When you get married to a spouse, you are not only facing your problems alone as an individual. Now you have a partner with you. So where you fall short, your partner will assist you and help you. Not only in daily matters as well, but also in financial, also in a friendship, also emotionally as well, psychologically, mentally. So you're not facing the world alone, but you have a partner. So these are some of the benefits of getting married young. Okay. Next slide. When it comes to choosing a partner, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala said, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, تخيروا لنطفكم تخيروا لنطفكم وأنكحوا الأكفاء وأنكحوا إليكم. Choose carefully for your children and marry a suitable spouse for you and give them in marriage. Okay. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also mentioned, خَالِلِي فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. So number one, when we get married to somebody and when we choose somebody, right, there's a criteria that needs to be met. I mean, all of us, we have a standard, we have expectations, and we have demands. Whether you're male or female, we have demands. And how do we go about it? What is Islam? What does Hadith says regarding this? Surah Al-Qasas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قالت إحداهما يا أبت استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. استأجرت القوي الأمين. So in Quran Surah Al-Qasas, this is regarding Musa alayhi salam and his future wife, Safura. So one of the women said, "Oh my father, hire him. Indeed, the one you can hire is the strong and the trustworthy." So the daughters of Yaqub alayhi salam was there, right? So she made a very thought-provoking statement to her father. So she said, "Oh my father, hire an individual who is strong and who is trustworthy. So already she's hinting to her father, "I want a strong man." What does this strong man mean in Islam? So when we look at the criteria of a man, so when we look at the criteria of a man, every woman, and we're going to deal with the aspect of the man first, the husband, and then we go to the women. As far as the husband goes, what does this strong mean? According to At-Tabari, strength here refers to Iman, a person who is sound in his deen. Preferably, yes, Iman is the gateway to everything. Iman is one of the greatest gifts which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. When we say, what does it actually mean? When Allah gives us Iman and we recite this kalima, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, what does it entail? What does it actually mean? It means that we have surrendered every aspect of our lives. We have said that it's not a secular debate or a logical discussion on who my Allah is. I know who my Allah is. It's a belief. So I'm handing my intellect over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever Allah says, whatever Hadith says, what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says goes, I'm handing my intellect to use. Yes, Quran and Sunnah is there. We can have debates about it. We can have scientific proofs about it. We can have proofs to strengthen our Iman. But that's not obviously the objective of it, but it is there to secularly enhance us in Iman. Emotionally as well. We are going to hand over our emotions to Deen, to Allah and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Deen will dictate our emotions as well. It's going to dictate our physical demands as far as this body goes. How we treat it, what we do with it, according to Quran and according to Sunnah. So every aspect of our body's internal, that is what Iman means. So when it comes to looking for a spouse, this is what we are looking for. Because if a man knows how to obey Allah, he's going to obey you. And he's going to obey the laws that is going to govern you as a woman. And if a woman marries a man with Iman, he's going to fulfill his responsibilities according to Quran and according to Sunnah. So primarily, look for a spouse for a man that has the embodiment of Iman. Trustworthiness. Who is the daughter or the woman's hero in her eyes before she gets married? The father. What does the role or what does the father do for that daughter? That father is going to do everything he can possibly for his daughter. Shelter, wealth, security, emotional security, financial security, you name it, the father is going to do it. The only hero in that daughter, in that woman's eyes, is the father. When a man comes to that, knock on that door for that daughter, trustworthiness. He is now going to take that responsibility of the father, and the father is going to hand over that guardianship, that responsibility over to this individual. And the father expects and demands that how he looked after the daughter, trustworthiness. We as husbands or future husbands, we need to know that when we knock on somebody's door and we take this woman's hand in marriage, that we are going to be truthful, we are going to be trustworthy, and we are going to take care of this responsibility and amanat that the father took over. So that is what we are signing up for. So when it looks at this word, khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyyu al-amin, a trustworthy man, an embodiment with iman. So then we have akhlaq, character of the man. And we know akhlaq is such an important thing. The character of an individual, of the man specifically, says a lot. If a man has honor, has respect, and has dignity, and we can see it in him, right? Obviously, it's good signs for an individual. It's good signs. It provides peace not only for the mother-in-law, but for the father as well. It's going to provide a positive outlook for everybody else. It's something to be proud of. This is my son-in-law. This is my son-in-law. He's doing this for the community. He's doing that, and his profession is this. So it's something, son-in-law that's shameful to the community, that's engaged in drugs, that's doing this and is doing that, and all negative things. Nobody likes that. So that's just by the way type of thing, you know. As far as our own outlook as akhlaq goes, there's a lot of things that we can say as far as conduct. You see, when it comes to akhlaq, if we marry someone that has akhlaq and character, we know that when the woman has a need, that he's going to step up to the plate, that he's going to be sensitive to her needs. And we know women are very emotional, and they have that time of the month where the emotions go through the roof. So when a person or a man's akhlaq is good, that he can understand that she's going through a period of akhlaq is good, that he can understand that she's going through a period of difficulty, and he can subdue his emotions or his difficult times to carry out and to fulfill her needs, her emotions at that specific time, says a lot about that individual. Her emotions at that specific time says a lot about that individual. I make this analogy a lot of times. You see, we as men, we have our egos, and it drives us, and we want to be the main man, and we want to be, we want our spouses to boost our egos. The mistake we make is, we make it that is our objective. So in today's time, we have these millennial women. They don't do curtains, they don't do dishes, they don't do beds, they don't do sweeping, they don't do washing, they don't do nothing. Now that we find a husband, he does the dishes, he does the washing, he does the curtains, he does the beds, he does the kids, he does the children, and he does everything. But what we fail to understand, that when we do these things as husbands, that what I do, it defines me as a husband. it says a lot about me as an individual. If I get praises for it, if I get extra, and that's a bonus. But it defines me, who I am. It says a lot about me, my being, my character. So when we do things like this, yes, we don't do it for praises and whatever, it defines me as an individual. It says a lot about me and my deen. And then we have our religious background. When we look for a spouse, we want to look for a man connection with Allah. We want a man that is connected to the Sunnah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why is this so important? We know there are many things that if a person does, still a Muslim. If a man doesn't fast the month of Ramadan, he's still a Muslim. Still a Muslim. But if a man doesn't perform his salah, there's a hadith that says, Man taraka salata muta'ammidan faqad kafar. Whomsoever doesn't perform his salat intentionally, faqad kafar. He's become a kafir. He's out of the fold of Islam. So if a man doesn't have, number one, his obligation to salah, how do we translate it as far as marriage goes? If a man understands his obligation to Allah, he is not going to fulfill his obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his deen and the sunnah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if a man understands his obligation to Allah and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can rest assured he knows his obligations regarding his wife. Because it works hand in hand. Because he understands authority. He understands responsibility. And he has a focus and an objective. So Allah, primary objective, please Allah, please Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then please his family. So, a religious background is a very important thing. Normally we would have a projector up here so that you could see the next slide. Okay, but I'm going to read it. Have we ever pondered and reflected upon the question of how, if a man is negligent of his duties towards Allah, he is going to perform his duties towards his wife? Okay, so exactly what I explained. If a man understands his obligation to Allah, he's going to understand his responsibilities to his wife. And there's a question I posed here. Does knights in shining armor really exist? Does knights in shining armor really exist? Because that's what our women, they are looking for, a knight in shining armor. I'm struggling. I don't have this and I don't have that. And they're waiting for that white horse to come out, pull in front of the door, knock on the door, and I'm going to marry you. Or they're going to pull, or there's one man who's going to knock on the door. She opens the door, she sees a Ferrari there, and she says, I'm going to take you, sweep you off, jump in the Ferrari. I'm going to take you, sweep you off, jump in the Ferrari. We go to this double story, we see to this mansion, and don't worry about everything else also. This is what our women are looking for. So I was listening to a very beautiful quote one day, and I'm going a bit off script. So the quote goes like this: people in our lives that we love, we will meet, and there will be many people in our lives that we love. And then it carries on further, it says, but it is not necessary all the people that we love will be in our lives. Not necessarily all the people that we love will be in our lives. Are we looking for a love story or a life story? Ask ourselves that question, what are we looking for? Ask ourselves that question, what are we looking for? Are we looking for a love story or a life story? Because if you're looking for a love story, that's reserved for the books and the novels. Go read about it in the books. You're not going to find it in real life. Okay, so we move on to the wife. They're not going to take, that's just the wife. There are volumes and volumes written about the wife. Alright, we look at the wife. We must understand that as a man, when we get married to a woman, what is their role? What is their function? What's their purpose? What is their function? What's their purpose? What is their actual status? What status do they hold? The big picture is the Ummah is made up of nations. And nations are made out of communities. And communities are made out of families. And the core of the family is a woman. And communities are made out of families. And the core of the family is a woman. The core of a family is a woman. Because from her comes communities, comes nations, comes the global universe. From this one woman, sisters, our mothers, our daughters, our aunts, our wives are all the teachers of our children. So depending on what wife you are going to take will be the outcome of our societies and our communities. And if you got a woman in a skimpy dress, and in the club got a woman in a skimpy dress, and in the clubs, in the pubs, in the clubs, you can only imagine what our communities and our societies will be like. So we have choices to make with regards to our wives. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned in the hadith, a woman, number one, limaliha, hasabiha, jamaliha, walidiniha. For these four things generally women are married for. Our wealth. We must understand with regards to wealth, a woman's wealth in Islam is her wealth. We have no say in it unless she gives her wealth. The wealth of the husband, it is his duty to provide for his wife according to the dictates of Sharia. It's his prerogative. Whatever he decides goes. Okay? Remember, when it comes to wealth, we need to uphold the status and the dignity and the honor of our women. That's our job, that's our responsibility. And the honor of our women, that's our job, that's our responsibility. So, when we look at a woman and her wealth, does it actually mean monetary, physical wealth? Doesn't necessarily mean that. Could be many things. It could be a man gets an obedient wife. Is it better than money? Definitely. So there are different forms of wealth. If a woman has such a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such a regard for the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, she can pass it over to her children. So there are different aspects with regard to wealth. Lineage, subhanAllah, I can't overemphasize the importance of lineage with regards to our wives. And as we as men, Islam is big on the preservation of lineage. We need to know who is the father, who is the grandfather. We need to know who is the father, who is the grandfather, and so on. And who are going to be the descendants. Yes, ascendants and descendants are very important in Islam. You know, was very here from blister running around here. So, lineage is very important. With consensus, every man, the first thing he looks for is beauty in a wife. Am I right? That's the draw card for a man. So there are pros to it, but there's also cons to it. There are pros to it, but there's also cons to it. I ask you another question. You can have the most beautiful woman in the world, ranked number 1. If you cross for that woman, does her beauty matter? Does her beauty matter? You want to bring out the sambok? Beauty doesn't matter. So, when it comes to beauty, it's one of those aspects because we built that way. It's a natural inclination for men. And when it comes to beauty, we can. And when it comes to beauty, as we mentioned, there are different forms of beauty. And in today's time also, as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm going to tie this up with for the fourth one with Hadith. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, choose deen. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, choose deen, fadfar bidat al-deen, be successful, very prosperous when you choose a woman for deen. Right? Taribat yadak. You will be most prosperous when it comes to a woman that has deen. So a form of beauty. When it comes to a woman that has beauty but doesn't have deen, and then we versus a woman who has deen but not so much beauty. Again, what do we go for? In Islam, what do we go for? In Islam, we would obviously give preference to that deen that she has, and then comes the beauty. Okay, so I think when it comes to man choosing a woman, we will look at the 4 categories which Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, but again, it is not foolproof in today's time. It's work in progress. So when we do this, the requirements for a spouse, for a husband or a woman, requirements for a spouse, for a husband or a woman, we're going to take the closest thing. Right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be married to this thing. We have in Islam, we're almost done. We have in Islam what is called a kuf, is a match. Right. And a man is compatible. We get a lot of situations in today's time where a man gets married for beauty, and that's about it. There's no commonality. There's no common interest within. There's no common interest within the marriage. Because it was based on beauty, or because it was based on wealth, there are no sustainable characteristics within that marriage. So when we look at you marrying someone who is a match, when we look at you marrying someone who is a match for you, then we look at a few aspects. Number one, intellectually. If you are a professional person, a highly intellectual person, and you get married to someone intellectually at a very low level, she can't carry a conversation with you. Then it becomes frustrating. So normally what we will say is a doctor, or we will find in today's time, a doctor will get married to a doctor. Why? Because they intellectually on the same level. They can carry a conversation. The topic might be, but they can have discussions, intellectual discussions regarding certain things. So these are one of the aspects of it. We have physical compatibilities. So if a person is generally an exercise fanatic, take a woman, right? If a woman is generally very physical, body conscious, and she gets a man that's triples her size, is an argument later. Diet habits, eating habits are different. Now there's a clash based on I want to eat apples and I want to eat this. Compatibility issues. Financial issues. Yes, we have a bit more leeway as far as financial, because the role of the husband is to provide for the woman. That's his primary. The role of the husband is to provide for the woman. That's his primary objective. But sometimes, when the roles are reversed, when a woman has all the money and the man has nothing, we can understand there's going to be a debate sometimes, going to be an argument, and no man is going to stand for it. Spiritual compatibility. If the man is a dini conscious person and his wife is hitting the clubs and the pubs, we can understand it's not going to work. So there's no compatibility there whatsoever. Morally, even morally, compatibility issues. So, example I'll give it, if I'm morally conscious, just say a typical example. We have this debate today, Gaza, Israel, and the one party is saying no, and the one party is saying no, it's genocide, and the other one is saying no, it's a right to self-defense. You understand what I'm saying? Morally, we're not on the same page here. Psychologically also. Psychologically is, I think, it's one of the major challenges we have in today's time. With warfare that we are having in today's time. Then we have such a thing as feminism, women's rights. And then we have LGBTQ rights. And then we have there's a lot of challenges in today's time. There's a huge attack on the marriage fraternity itself. So psychologically also, depending on the man's background, on the woman's background, was the child abused, was the woman abused. So she's got a lot of trauma. So when they come into the marriage, they are not strong or strong enough to handle a marriage. Because she comes with baggage, or he comes with baggage. So if the husband comes from an abusive home, where his father physically abused him, that's all he knows. He gets married. What do we think is going to happen to that woman? Also. So this is one of the most important aspects in today's time. Okay, I'm going to skip a few, inshallah. So, when it comes, very importantly, when it comes to this compatibility issues, if we don't adhere to this, what is known as a kuf, we are going to have what we in today's modern time call the back home syndrome. Back home syndrome is that your daughter is going to be divorced, and you as the father will have to take her back to the beginning. Are we equipped for this? If the father is not there, what happens to that woman? What happens to the child? What happens to the children? Our communities can't handle and sustain this thing. So to prevent this, compatibility is a huge and very important aspect. So to prevent this back home syndrome, what we call a kuf is very important. So you need to do your homework before that, inshallah. That brings me, I'm going to skip a few slides, but okay, alhamdulillah, that brings me to the end of it. So we can understand the importance of marriage, choose the correct spouse, mark all the boxes, or tick every box to see what you can get to the closest. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all a happy, prosperous, joyful marriage union based with Iman, Sunnah, all the components of the characteristics of the Sunnah of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
مقصر يرجوك يا من لا ترد المسألة والختم بالصلاة دائما على محمد خير نبي أرسله